European Neanderthals never lived in Africa, but mysteriously their genes got there anyway. In a stunning reversal, anthropologists now say that sub-Saharan Africans carry a surprising amount of Neanderthal DNA. In fact, humans on every continent have a genetic legacy from our big-headed cousins. For many years, geneticists have told the story of how Neanderthals, or at least their DNA sequences, live on in today's Europeans, Asians, and their descendants. But not so in Africans, the story goes, because modern humans and our extinct cousins interbred only outside of Africa. But a study published the 20th of February 2020 overturns that notion, revealing an unexpectedly large amount of Neanderthal ancestry in modern populations across Africa. This is the finding of the study that identifies, for the first time, Neanderthal genes present in modern-day people of African ancestry. What's surprising about our results is the magnitude of the Neanderthal signal that we see in all of the African populations we've looked at. There's more Neanderthal ancestry in Africa than we thought, say the researchers. The study looked at 5 sub-Saharan African populations: the Luhya of Kenya, the Mandinka of Gambia, the Mende of Sierra Leone, the Yoruba of Nigeria, and the Esan of Nigeria. Significantly, the Yoruba are considered one of the oldest African populations, but one study suggests they emigrated to Africa from Eurasia. The Yoruba are commonly taken as the African ancestor of non-African populations, in studies that acknowledge the out-of-Africa hypothesis. But genetic studies have shown the Yoruba to cluster most closely with other West African peoples, according to another study published the 19th of December 2020. It is not known whether other African populations, some of whose roots stretch into the deep past, share this Neanderthal heritage. For example, the Khoisan, aka the Bushman, and the Mbuti, aka the Central African Pygmy, appear to have split off from other groups more than 200,000 years ago. Neanderthals arose about 430,000 years ago, living in Europe and Central Asia until their demise some 40,000 years ago. Thanks to genetic studies, we know that modern humans interbred with Neanderthals after they left Africa, leaving traces in each other's DNA. Human and Neanderthal lineages are more closely intertwined than once thought. African populations have been revealed to share Neanderthal ancestry for the first time, in findings that add a new twist to the tale of ancient humans and our closest known relatives. Previously, it was believed that only non-African populations carried Neanderthal genes, due to interbreeding that took place after a major human migration out of Africa, about 60,000 years ago. But the latest findings suggest human and Neanderthal lineages are more closely intertwined than once thought, and point to far earlier interbreeding events, about 200,000 years ago. Although, the study authors used careful wording, so as to not undermine the staunch out-of-Africa theorists. Nonetheless, our history was much more interesting, and there were many waves of dispersal in and out of Africa, some of which led to admixture between modern humans and Neanderthals that we see in the genomes of all living humans today. Previous research showed that approximately 1.5% of the DNA of people of European ancestry originated from these encounters, and that people of East Asian ancestry had about 20% more Neanderthal DNA than this, possibly due to more interbreeding. The genomes of people of African ancestry, however, showed little or no evidence of this genetic transfer, which made sense, because Neanderthals never inhabited Africa. The Neanderthal genes were identified in people of European ancestry by comparing their genomes to people of African ancestry, on the assumption they were a Neanderthal-free population. But to find out if this assumption was correct, researchers devised a new method for detecting archaic ancestry in DNA. Using data from the 1000 Genomes Project to look at the genomes of people of African ancestry in Africa, and elsewhere in the world. The new method revealed unexpectedly high Neanderthal signatures of 0.3% in people of African ancestry, compared with less than 0.02% shown in previous studies. The researchers theorized that Neanderthal DNA reached African populations through modern humans in Europe migrating back, and European ancestors introduced a substantial part of Neanderthal sequence to Africa, and that spread around the continent. However, there is another scenario, the hypothesis that Homo sapiens evolved in Eurasia, and went into Africa 200,000 years ago, after acquiring these Neanderthal genes. Everyone living today bears that legacy of admixture with the Neanderthals. There is highly compelling evidence that migrations, both out of Africa and into Africa over the last 250,000 years, have played a prominent role in shaping patterns of human genetic variation. By finding Neanderthal ancestry in Africans, the study provided additional insight into this process of how populations have been moving in and out of Africa for a really, really long time. Interbreeding between Neanderthals and early modern humans was thought to have happened in Eurasia, where Neanderthals thrived, after the ancestors of modern Eurasians split from the ancestors of modern Africans 50,000 to 80,000 years ago. But Homo sapiens also bred with Neanderthals as much as 200 to 300,000 years ago, proving that Homo sapiens were in Eurasia much earlier than previously believed. Previously, because they believed ancestors of modern African people didn't breed with Neanderthals, scientists built models for identifying Neanderthal DNA that assumed African individuals have no Neanderthal ancestry. Researchers even used modern African genomes as a control to eliminate variants as not being Neanderthal in origin. But doing so was a greater oversimplification than they realized, to put it nicely. To search modern human genomes for Neanderthal ancestry without making such an assumption, researchers developed a statistical technique that allowed them to forego the use of an African reference genome. Instead, they relied simply on comparing the 2,504 genomes from the 1000 Genomes Project to the reference Neanderthal genome. The analysis found that African individuals had an average of 17 megabases of Neanderthal sequence, about one-third the quantity of Neanderthal DNA found in people of Eurasian descent. While that's still quite a bit less than the 50-plus megabases of Neanderthal DNA found in the genomes of modern Eurasians, it's more than many scientists expected. And quite a bit more than the 0% assumed by the statistical methods that have been used to identify Neanderthal ancestry in modern human genomes. The African genomes even contained some stretches of Neanderthal DNA that weren't found in Eurasian genomes, and other Neanderthal sequences that were found in much higher frequencies. The new method also revealed variants that differed in frequency between European and Asian populations. It suggests that East Asians do not have that much more Neanderthal ancestry than Europeans. Previous estimates found that East Asians have 20% more Neanderthal ancestry than Europeans. In using the new method, the study group found that European and East Asian genomes differed by less than 8% in the quantity of Neanderthal DNA, and perhaps much less. The researchers say that the method adds to this set of methods that have emerged for screening for Neanderthal DNA that make different assumptions about population history. It is interesting that mathematical modeling relies on assumptions, not just facts. The research also identified another potential bias in how researchers have interrogated modern genomic data. For example, analyses identified Neanderthal sequences in modern human genomes by comparing them to the Neanderthal reference genome. But as a result of interbreeding with Homo sapiens, Neanderthals carried Homo sapiens DNA in their genomes. This means that all current methods, even this new one, are overestimating the amount of Neanderthal DNA in modern human genomes across the board, including African, European, and Asian populations. Indeed, we're finding similar sequences, not because of introgression from Neanderthals to modern humans, but from this old hybridization event where humans gave Neanderthals their DNA. In many ways, the way we conceptualize human history is always sort of an oversimplification. An important aspect of the study is that it highlights that humans, and hominins, were moving in and out of Africa for hundreds of thousands of years, and occasionally admixing. The increasingly fine-grained details of our ancestors' migration patterns, and intimate encounters with other types of humans, are coming into focus thanks to the advent of sophisticated computational genetics techniques. These statistical methods allow scientists to line up the Neanderthal genome, side by side with that of ancient modern humans, and DNA from different living populations. They can then figure out whether the different lineages have been steadily diverging, or whether there are blips where large chunks of DNA were exchanged at certain time points. This latest comparison highlights previously unnoticed ancient human genes in the Neanderthal genome, apparently acquired from interbreeding events dating to about 200,000 years ago. This evidence suggests an early group of Homo sapiens encountered Neanderthal populations, and left a faint imprint on their genome that can still be detected more than 200,000 years later. The out of Eurasia hypothesis suggests that these groups originated in south-central Eurasia and migrated into Africa around 250,000 years ago. The fact that they have tiny amounts of Neanderthal DNA proves that they were once in Eurasia, according to the hypothesis.